Have you, as an artist, ever found yourself in a slump? You can't seem to create anything you're happy with and is up to your standards? Well, you are in what's known as the creative gap. The creative gap is often used to visualize the way our art improves along with our tastes in art. Imagine it as a linear graph. On one axis, we have art quality or skill, and on another, we have time. One measure describes how our taste in art changes over time, or the change in what art we find appealing or look up to. On the other measure, we have our own personal art skill. Neither are perfectly linear, nor are they always parallel. Sometimes one is higher than the other, and sometimes they align. See these little gaps where personal skill is lower than art interests? This is the creative gap. In these times, we find ourselves unable to create art that we feel is up to our standards. This can be very frustrating. I used to find myself in this gap for quite some time, but over the last year or so, I've had to do a lot more art more regularly due to my business. As a result, I think I've managed to find the best ways to keep myself out of the gap more often than being stuck in it like a horrible pit of quicksand that is much more relevant of a concern than actual quicksand. With these super simple tips that I'm willing to bet you haven't actually heard before, I have found that my art has greatly improved, and I think yours will too. So, let's get right into it. Okay, so you've probably heard this one over and over again, but a lot of people fail to properly explain what practicing means. To practice art just simply means to draw when you want to. Put the effort in to get better at art and be patient. Just practice does admittedly sound like a scapegoat, and to be fair, sometimes it is. Stop asking me how to draw, just practice and leave me alone. But it is true that you won't get much better at art if you never draw. And remember, there's nothing wrong with tracing or studying others' art as long as the artists allow it and you don't post it anywhere with the aim of claiming it as your own. I would also suggest, if you're going to trace art, try to build up the shapes you see below the silhouette. If you simply trace the lines, you aren't likely to learn anything. However, by visualizing how the artist may have compiled the shapes and forms, you can gain a better understanding of the subject and process. I also suggest using photo references, if character art is your niche. There are lots of unique and interesting pose references on Pinterest, and there's nothing stopping you from tracing these photos in the same way. Just don't depend too much on the silhouette of your reference, and try to imagine the process of how you would draw the image without tracing it. If you keep up this fairly regular practice, you're bound to see some improvement in your art. And if you don't believe me, feel free to check out other videos on YouTube. Many people have done challenges like I drew every day for 100 days or filling a sketchbook in 2 weeks. In almost all cases, the artists saw great improvement in their art process, or attitude about art. This next one might sound counterintuitive, especially following my last tip. But there is such a thing as too much practice. When you draw constantly, it's easy to get burnt out and lose steam. When this happens, it's best to take a break and let yourself gather motivation again. Everyone's different, and drawing every day isn't right for everyone. I find that I work best when I take 1 to 2 breaks between my bigger pieces. Don't try to just steam ahead and get through it, because all it will do is burn you out and discourage you. You can't make your best art when you're feeling tired, and seeing your less than standard art will just make you feel crappy. For some, taking breaks may mean coming back the next day, while others may need to take anywhere closer to a month or 2 away from art. There's nothing wrong with taking a step back and letting yourself breathe. I know sometimes we have to keep drawing, like me, as when I started my business, I had to spend a lot of time in a short time frame drawing things to build product. But there are ways to get around this. Don't push yourself to finish a piece in one sitting, even if it's a simple design. Take breaks and pick at it in 20-minute intervals, or choose milestones to take a break at. Know your limits, and listen to your body when it needs a break. When everyone around you is drawing one thing, it's easy to think that you should draw that thing too. But not all artists are built the same. One person's strengths are different than the next. It's very possible that your art isn't up to your standards because you're simply not drawing the right things. If you've been trying to draw superhero comic style art but it's not working for you, maybe you need to try drawing something else like cute animals. The skills to draw a certain thing aren't always aligned with the skills to draw another. Your skills may be better equipped to draw dogs than humans, and there's nothing wrong with that. If a certain type of art comes more easily to you, then try focusing on that instead. You may find a new niche that works better for you. If you're not sure what your focus area should be, try thinking back to what you drew when you started drawing. What types of things did you draw most as a child? People? My Little Pony? Sonic? Cats and dogs? Your answer is where you should start. Try to see if you still have the skills, and if you do, then it can't hurt to at least bask in the nostalgia for a while and find joy in drawing it again. Art is much more fun when it comes easier to you. Not only this, but don't tire yourself out by studying anatomy or practicing fundamentals. In my time doing art, I've hardly spent any time studying the basics, because I simply don't enjoy it. I personally find that my art has improved greatly by just drawing what I enjoy. A lot. If you find yourself in a similar boat, tiring of drawing still lifes or practicing the basics, just try to focus on more things that you enjoy drawing, and in time your skills will develop. This one is something I've seen affect a lot of my artist peers, and myself included, to some degree. As online artists, it's hard to ignore the numbers, especially as the numbers will often reflect our financial performance, that is, if you're making money off of our art. But remember that the numbers aren't everything. Focusing on likes, engagement, or reach can end up just discouraging us, so when it becomes an issue, it's best to just focus on doing what we like. For example, I understand that on Instagram, Reels are pushed to the algorithm more and it helps artists grow. However, I tend not to make Reels. This is just because A, I don't have the time to dedicate to making daily Reels, and B, I don't necessarily enjoy making them. In the past when I've made Reels, it has been purely because I think a trend looks fun or the reel will be easy to make, but either way, it's really hit or miss. Even if a reel audio or trend is popular, the chances of your reel popping off in the same way are slim to none. I feel the same way about art on TikTok. I have an art TikTok, but I post really infrequently, just because I don't find short-form video content to be best for my audience. In general, I don't worry much about numbers in any avenue. This includes YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and even my Etsy sales. And if I can gain a few followers or a couple bucks a month from that, then great, but I don't worry too much about it. Vast majority of my income from my art comes from selling at local conventions and geeky markets. As such, the most dedicated followers and buyers I have are local people who attend these events. Many of these have even been with me since I began back in fall 2022. Just remember that no matter how small your follower count or how small your engagement and reach may be, the most dedicated people will be closer to you, and those are the people you want to think about. As long as you're having fun with what you're doing and you're not being too serious about it, the followers will see that enjoyment and be more likely to come rolling in. It's important to take steps outside of your comfort zone from time to time. Obviously, you can draw whatever you enjoy, but remember that it's important to try new things. This can even be simply trying a new coloring technique you saw on TikTok. Anything outside of what you usually do in your art process can count as taking a risk. Venture on new soils, find new ways to get to the finish line. I find it helps to watch art process videos from my favorite artists online so I can get an idea of how they achieve their styles. If a particular process catches my eye, I give it a go in my own art and see if it sticks. A lot of people say that one of the most recognizable traits of my art is thick and smooth line art. This is something that I started doing a little over a year ago, and it stuck with me just because I enjoy it. Instead of putting line art on a new layer, I simply trace over the sketch with a pen and then erase the messy lines around it. As such, my progress pictures often look clean in one area but messier in another. It also helps that it looks cooler in the time-lapse. And like I said, this is something that I just tried one day, and I've literally not stopped since I did it in that one piece. My shading process is also something I took from a fellow artist online. You could piece together a process that works for you by taking risks and experimenting with other techniques. Not only this, but remember that it's okay not to have something work out. I have a lot of art ideas that I think about, but when I put it on paper or a screen, it just isn't translating. And that's okay. Try new things, experiment with new styles, and most importantly, have fun with it. And that brings me to my last point. Art is supposed to be fun. Even if you have decided to start a business and monetize art, it still should be fun for you. All of my previous points have kind of bled into this one, but I think at its core, art needs to be a way to decompress and have fun expressing yourself. Whether it's through experimentation, staying in your comfort zone, not doing studies, focusing on fan art, whatever, you need to be having fun. If I'm not in the mood to work on a large piece one day, I find it can be fun to work on business cards or signage for my business instead. Even if you don't have a business for your art, try designing a hypothetical logo. If drawing OCs doesn't make you inspired or motivated, then focus on fan art. If drawing without pose references makes you confused and frustrated, then stick a pose reference in there. Just have fun! As long as you're crediting any original creators for your references, there's nothing wrong with getting some help. Do what you enjoy, and remember that no one, not even me, can tell you the right way to do art. All art is beautiful, and all art should be enjoyed, not only by the viewer, but by the creator as well. If you love the process, the result will be much more enjoyable and you will see a major improvement in your skill. It all just bleeds down into do whatever makes you happy. Art is meant to be enjoyed, so enjoy it. Your enjoyment is reflected directly in your work, and others will see that. Be you and be patient. Your art will improve and you will get out of the creative gap. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you all next time.